Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this section on crafting immersive audio experiences for interactive VR narratives. In this session, we'll be using a VR narrative title as a case study to showcase and discuss what works and what does not when it comes to designing immersive audio for this genre. A quick, brief introduction about myself. My name is Larry. I am a composer and sound designer focusing on creating immersive and interactive audio experience for media like VR, video games. I'm based in New York City. I started my career in writing music and design sound for linear experience like film, theaters, and commercials. And after a while, I acquired a master's degree in the entertainment technology at Carnegie Mellon University, where I started to explore and different possibilities that audio can play in the more interactive media. From there, I started to work with different groups, companies, studios on their VR projects, and have a lot of insights and experience on working on the audio of it. And now I am an audio consultant and helping different companies to deliver their audio from their VR experiences. Okay, so these are some of the projects I worked on before, and today we'll be picking The Price of Freedom as the case study to go forward. But why are we even talking about audio? Is audio really that important? Turns out audio is quite crucial in many forms of the storytelling. George Lucas once said he feels like sound is half of the experience. David Lynch also mentioned that film are 50% of visual and 50% of sounds. Sometimes sounds even overplays the visuals, which is even more true when it comes to virtual reality, because sound can immediately directly affects the immersion of the experience. For example, if we are in a virtual space and we pick up bottles and dropping on the floor, and in the process there's no sound or the sound doesn't really match our expectation, our subconscious mind will immediately tell us that there is something wrong with this virtual world just because the sound doesn't replicate our daily life experience. So it will hurt immersion and makes the whole virtual world less believable, and the experience will be less exciting. So we have to make sure that the sound is well designed so to keep the player to have a more immersive experience. So let's now take a look at the trailers of The Price of Freedom and just have a basic idea about what we are going to talk about.
This is the confession of Benjamin Miller, traitor to my country. I am the infiltrator of Westgate Psychiatric. I have here Dr. Engel's research files, and I will read out every one.
Kill Benjamin.
So The Price of Freedom is inspired by the truth events of Project MKUltra, a terrifying classified history piece where the U.S. government captured innocent people, brainwash them, and tell them to do terrible things. In the story, you are told, or the player is told, that they are a CIA agent, and they have to get into a person's apartment. His name is Ben Miller, to retrieve some document that he stole from top secret U.S. government facilities. And in the gameplays, the player will go through from one room to another, gather information, and kill him, and then figure out what the story is about, and eventually who they really are eventually. So the playtime of this experience is about 15 to 20 minutes. We use Unity as our game engine, and we use HTC Vive as our platform, then porting to Oculus Quest later on. And for the interactive middleware, audio middleware, we use Wwise, and as well as our in-house audio tools, which we'll discuss later. Okay, so talk about audio elements in virtual reality. We categorize them into 4 different groups to better handle them in a proper way. So in this experience, we have separate all the audio elements into 4 groups: sound effects, music, ambient sound, and voiceover. Notice that we don't really talk about UI sounding here just because UI doesn't really match the narrative for this experience. However, for other experience, when they have includes the UI elements inside their stories, it might have another categories, or they might put with the sound effects, depends on the context. But with those elements, how are we going to prioritize making them, and how are we going to place them into virtual reality? From my experience, I think putting the collision interaction sound, which are the sound effects, in the projects as early as possible can benefit the projects a lot. It is because it can help the designers and developers teams to envision their design in a more accurate way, so they can work on expand or modify their design. It also helps audio professionals to spot potential problems and to fix it as early as possible before the project gets too big and the problem becomes too difficult or too expensive to solve in the later half of the production stage. For example, at the early stage of the production, we have put interaction sound and the collision sound for each interactable objects. And this is how it sounds like. So it feels really a little bit off. Like only one layer definitely make the sound experience and feedback very plastic and doesn't live up to our expectation. And this kind of audio experience will hurt the immersions a lot because it's just not really believable. So we decided to use the dynamic audio approach to design around the sound. What is dynamic audio approach? It is a system that enables sound to play the interactive feedback to make sure that whatever the player is behaving in the game will have satisfying or different layers of feedback to match their behavior in the game. There are many ways to achieve such goals. Audio middleware like Wwise and FMA are built to support the interactive audio system. Unreal engines also have their built-in tools like Meta Sounds to achieve such goals. Many big companies also have their own in-house tool to work on their customized interactive sound system. This is the interface of Wwise, and this is how FMA looks like, and this is how Unreal Meta Sounds look like. The interface might look a little bit different from one tool to another, but ultimately they are trying to achieve the same goal, to provide more dynamic audio feedback for the player based on their action. For us, we also develop our own in-house interactive sound system, which has two features. First one is the material sound system. The second one is the collision sound system. In the material sound system, we create a range of common materials like metal, glass, wood, and assign them to each interactable objects in the scene. And when those objects collide with each other, so with other things, we'll have the system to detect how strong the collision force is each time it happens, and put them into three different groups: light, medium, and heavy, depends on how strong they are. And in each folder, we have a list of sound clips that the system can choose from. And on top of that, we have the pitch variation system. So to make sure that each time a sound clip is played, it will have different kind of behavior. They will sound differently than the one that played before, to increase the dynamics and organics of the sound cues. So this is how, this is how it looks like in the Unity interface. You can see at the top, this object has one pickup sound and one drop sound. And depending on the features of that objects, they may have a holding sound, they may not have a one. And at the bottom, you'll see this object is attached to some materials called glass. And there are three different levels: medium, light, and heavy, to have different options to choose from when the collision is happened. So this is how it sounds like after we apply this system to the objects. So it sounds much more natural to our ears. Having this kind of varieties and depth of the audio feedback helps the immersions a lot. And we have to apply these techniques to all the interactable objects in the scene, just because whatever the player is able to interact with must have satisfying audio feedbacks to keep them immersed in the virtual world. But if there are so many objects in the scene, how are we going to make sure that the player will get a more important information out of the stories and actually get the narratives? When you talk about storytelling in interactive media, there is a concept in game design that can be very helpful for this situation. It's called the indirect control. It is a technique to use design to guide the players perform certain expected action without letting them realize their actions being guided. There is a separate little games we can talk about as an example about this concept. So in this game, you are the red dot, and you are in the forest, and your goal is to escape the forest without being eaten by the monsters. So in this scenario, there are 3 paths they can choose to go to: the right, below, and the left one. And it's pretty obvious that most players would choose the right path just because there is a clear exit sign in here, and the path looks pretty clean compared with the others, which has a dead corpse in here and the footprints of the monsters. So even though the player think they have all the freedom to choose wherever they wanted to go, eventually they'll choose the right path, which is where the designer want them to go. Audio is a great way to use indirect control because they have several features. First, they can set up time and the space for the environment. In the Price of Freedom, we have a audio radio that plays the music in the 60s. We also have a TV that broadcasts JF Kennedy's inauguration speech. So as soon as the player jump into that virtual world, immediately they get there in the 60s, the Cold War eras. Audio also can draw the player's attention. For example, we have a reel-to-reels and tapes that are being installed in the space. So whenever that tape is played, the player will automatically turn their head to that direction and focusing on the area we want them to focus to. And the information of those tapes and reel-to-reel also provide information for the player to get the story, apart from other elements like letters, newspapers, or binders, pictures, which tells pretty much the same story. So even though the player might miss out 1 or 2 of the materials in the scene, but overall they can still get the ideas about what the story is about because we try to use different ways to tell the story over and over again. Interactive music is a great way to shape a player's emotional arc in a different level. And in this fire scene of the projects, we develop a 4-stage interactive music for the player to trigger from one place to another. So in the fire scene at the beginning, the player just realized how terrible thing they have done and who they really are. In this stage, we want the player to feel a bit numb. So we only have 1 layer of synthesizer imitating the heartbeats of a human at this stage. And as soon as they lit the entire room on fire, the second layer got triggered. In this layer, we have a piano introduced to the new layer to make the player feels like their conscious start to come back. And in the third layer, when they manage to escape the room, the full range of sorrow start to kick in. That is the third layer. So we, at the end, we'll end up with like a musical tale to imitate how we experience the linear music in like linear experience like movies and TV shows. And then the story goes on. Now let's take a listen to the music of this fire scene.
You have done well, Agent Zero. Do you see what you are now? I have one more task for you. Burn it. Good. Burn your past, Agent Zero. Good. That was easy to do, wasn't it? You didn't even think twice. Return to Westgate, Agent Zero. There's nothing more for you here. Welcome back. I'm satisfied.
So the use of signature music can really enhance the storytelling experience as well, because it can inform the player of certain characters or the scenes of the story. It can come with the diegetic form or a non-diegetic form. So for people who don't know what I mean, diegetic form of music is the music that exists in the story space, like the music plays in the radios or the TV, while non-diegetic form of music is the one that does not. We create a theme music for this character called Kathy in this game. She is the daughter of Ben Miller, and her theme shows up the first time in a diegetic form, which is the music box that Ben Miller gave it to her for her birthday present. And later half of the story, whenever the plot is about this character, the same tune will shows up in a non-diegetic form to remind the player of this character. Now we have designed sound effects and music. How are we going to place them into VR? We wanted to create a sonic space to immerse the player in the environments, but at the same time, we want to reinforce some of the more important information so that the player won't miss it. So we decided to put all the audio source in two different groups. One stay in the fixed location, the second one will move along with the player. The purpose of the first one that stay in the fixed location is to maintain that sonic space to immerse the player. Includes our ambient sound, collision interaction sound, diegetic music, and parts of the dialogue. Take our ambience surrounding sound as an example. We develop a 5-speaker system in each room, and each speaker will attach one mono tracks, and we place those as how we place the 5.1 speaker in our real life. And the audio source will be attached to either a particular place in the space, or they will be attached to objects. The second group will move along with the player. The purpose of this group is to reinforce some of the clarity so the player won't miss out the information out of it. That includes our dialogue, non-diegetic music, and parts of the audio from the cutscene. We have a voice-over source that keeps telling the player what they should do in their experience. So we attach that audio source to the back of the player's head all the time throughout the experience, which can make sure that the player will always get clear information out of this audio source. It also serves the purpose of the narratives, which is pretty much indicated in the pictures from there. Now, after we place all the audios in the virtual reality world, how are we going to mix them? We figured that it will be easier and more straightforward to mix the audios in bigger groups. So we once again put the audio assets into 4 bigger groups like sound effects, music, ambient sound, and voiceover, and then assign them to the audio mixers in Game Engine in each their separate channels, and then mix with that. Before we put all the audio source inside Game Engine, we have already adjusted the levels of those audio clips in the DAW, the digital audio workstation, to make sure that whatever getting to the Game Engine has like healthy balance, so that we don't have to do too much inside the Game Engine. And once we do the setup in one mixer, we can save it for one state. And once we go from one state to another, when the player goes through from one state to another, the mix can change accordingly based on their actions in games. So let's take a retrospect view about what we just talked about. We talked about the importance of putting collisions and interaction sound in the game as early as possible. It benefits the developers, teams, and audio professionals by letting them envision their design properly and work on modifying or expansion of their game. They also help professionals, audio professionals like us, to envision early problems and solve it as soon as possible before the problem gets too big to solve at the later half of the production stage. We also talk about using audio to tell story by using the ideas of indirect control. We also talk about how to put the audios into different groups. One is staying in the fixed location, one will move along with the player. And we talk about dynamic mixing in virtual reality. So thank you for your time for this session. I'm glad that you made it, and I'm looking forward to further conversation. Feel free to follow me on my socials or email me on my to my email. And thank you for your time, and hope you have a great rest of your conference.